Hello, welcome to the Friday Business News Report. It's now time to bring you a feature on the show today as we focus on Nigeria's power infrastructure and the state of affairs at this point in time. The Transmission Company of Nigeria says that it has commenced grid recovery after the country's power grid collapse, leading to a total blackout across the country. Confirming the development, TCN Manager Public Affairs Ndidimba says that there was a total collapse of the grid as a result of voltage collapse at some parts of the grid, adding that the cause of the voltage collapse that precipitated the failure is currently being investigated. Mrs. Mba also says that the restoration process of the grid started from a hydropower generation station in Niger State down to Abuja through Delta to Benin and up to Lagos. She further appeals to Nigerians for patience, assuring that the TCN is working assiduously to ensure full restoration of the grid and consequently power sector supply to the remaining parts of the country. And joining me now live in our Lagos studio to discuss this trend and much more, I have with me Energy Editor, New Telegraph, Adelola Yusuf. Good to have you in the breakfast show this morning.
My pleasure.
What do you make of the reports we've had so far in terms of power plant blackouts, grid collapse, and all of those? In the month of March, April, we had series of power plants going down. Now we also have another situation on ground where there is a total blackout. So it's been from one report to the other, and Nigerians still have to pay more for electricity. So in one sense, it does not necessarily make the most of economic meaning for us to pay more to service this infrastructure and then not have the power. What does this tilt towards in terms of project management? Okay,
simply put, it shows that we are not a serious, set of people. We are not so serious about ensuring that we actualize the development that we've always been mouthing all this while. It's so unfortunate that up to now we are still talking about the power sector, which everyone understands to be, the cardinal of development in every nation. We are still talking about incessant grid collapse. But one thing I should say about that is that because it's something that has technical background or technical equipment and all that, there will be occasional issues about faults. But having it collapsing totally almost always is something that shouldn't be allowed.
That's the biggest concern for every Nigerian. Why now? Why are we having the consistent system collapse?
It is
it excusable to say voltage collapse at some parts of the grid? Is this report from the TCN well explanatory or convincing enough to say this is an excuse to be bought into?
Okay, before answering that question, it's very, very important. It is a very complex issue, but I will try as much as possible to make it so simple for our viewers. Okay, we have three different standalone starters in the entire power value chain. We have the generation, we have the transmission, we have the distribution. Generation are those companies that will generate electricity through the gas. They call them thermal when they generate through gas, through water, that is hydro. And all that. So the generation part of that value chain has been privatized. The transmission, which is the central, has not been privatized. The distribution, which is at the tail end of the power value chain, has been privatized. So the government is still the one handling the transmission, and everyone will understand the reason the government is saying that, so that there won't be a problem at the end of the day. But having the power grid collapsing almost all the time is something that is questioning the government retainership of that side, that unit. Then one thing I need to understand, because of time, I know that the time will run out, is that there has been a number of issues around this power grid. Number one, in 2015, there was a NEC approval that there should be what they call super grid. It doesn't make, even talking about safety, security, it is not good to have, everything. Let me quickly explain that. What the transmission company of Nigeria does with that grid is to harvest all the power generated by the GENCOs. I've said the GENCOs, harvest it inside one basket and distribute it. You will understand that it's as simple as, African proverb that it doesn't make any sense to put all eggs in the basket. So in terms of security, national security, having one grid for the entire nation, if enemies, God forbid, enemies of the country want to attack us, all they will need to do is to just attack that one grid that we have that is supplying the whole nation. The one that happened a few days ago affected virtually every part of the country, plunged the entire country into a darkness. So it doesn't make sense, having everything inside one basket. So what happened in 2015 that I was talking about? NEC approved what they call super grid. Super grid are smaller grids that will be in different regions. As we speak now, what we have is just one grid that is harvesting every power generated across the country, and from that grid they will now start distributing. So after that approval, there was nothing done after that approval because of politics and because of geopolitical concerns that we usually raise in Nigeria. So until we start looking towards the super grid, for instance, a power generated in the south or southeast will have to be sent to the grid. Then from that grid, they will now send that power back to people living in the southeast, south, or southeast, or northwest, or anywhere that they're generating. So it doesn't make any economic sense. It doesn't make even any security sense having just one grid. So I'm quickly talking about the solution to this problem. So until we start looking at that, and another issue now is that the grid we are talking about now, has been put in place for so many years. All the time the TCN usually talk about rehabilitation. But when you are not even supplying, when you are not providing all those other super grid, why don't we? Experts have said that we need an entire overhaul of that grid. So until that is done, until we become so serious about ensuring that everything right is done, we will keep having this. And I'm not a prophet of doom, but it is technical. And when you know that what is right is not done in terms of technicality, we'll keep having that issue.
It's been said, but at the end of the day, we also have to look at the fact that we have to take much more seriously the conversation around project or facility management, because we can't have these assets continue to just have to stand the test of time and not enough is done to shore up the efforts that we see all of these assets serve, or these resources serve. But now looking at off-grid power solutions at this point in time, how much of an intention do you think from private players to the government and individual units should now start looking at other? Yes, it's quite expensive, looking at the conversations around solar panel, looking at wind and a whole lot more. We need to diversify our energy mix. We cannot still be having conversations about gas power plant or hydro power plants excuse me, and all of those. We need to be intentional. Yes, we are taking baby steps in terms of having installation of solar panels and then working with that, but aggressively, that has to be followed through.
Okay, I agree with your submission, but one fundamental issue in all that is that it is not now. Nigerians have taken, their destinies into their hands. You can ask that how many people in the countries are still on the grid that you are talking about. So how are they getting their supply? There is already an alternative source. In your home, you are likely to have an alternative source of power generation. A number of Nigerians may be watching us now using alternative, source of. So, but the key, word you use is being intentional about this, and government piloting, government, sitting at the, driver's chair to ensure that this is done. A lot of activities, we have been told have been happening around this. The other day, the vice president commissioned a number of, plans to ensure that this is done. But we have to be very intentional and we have to be very, very serious. The danger in not doing the right thing is that we will keep, moving one step forward and about 5 steps backward in terms of economy. Because until the issue of power is resolved, until we are so serious about ensuring that things are done the right way and Nigerians are supplied with electricity, we'll keep having issues about economic conundrum and all that. So it's very, very important that we try as much as possible to do the right thing. And
also talking about state efforts now, what do you think what sort of conversations do you expect state governors now to start having in terms of looking at solutions to the power situation in the country? I say this for a fact because at the end of the day, now we have to look at regional concentration of efforts. We cannot work in silos or rely on the central for all of the assistance we need. You can't put all your eggs in one basket, like you've clearly mentioned.
Okay, quickly, let me say this. A number of people may not be aware that the power sector particularly the transmission, is seriously regulated. In Nigeria, you cannot, if you generate up to 100 megawatts, it is a law in Nigeria, you must send it to the grid. So that law is affecting, although I'm not speaking on behalf of states. There are some states, governors that have said that they are ready, you understand, to ensure that they start, they invest in generation. But the problem is there is this law that by the time they generate up to 100 megawatts, they have to send it to the national grid. So that is, until we ensure that that law is repealed or we do something about that law, it will still keep jeopardizing any effort. But that doesn't mean that states too should not be serious about it, because if they are serious about it, they all meet almost every week with the fragment. They can table this and resolve this. It's not something that, it's not a rocket science. It's not something that cannot be done. So if everyone on the table is serious.
Thank you very much for your time on the Breakfast Show this morning, Mr. Adelola Yusuf, Energy Editor, New Telegraph. It's been years, decades of privatization of the power sector. There have been calls for reforms. There has been conversation around asset management. There's the need for us to do better. Enough of all of the excuses.
Absolutely.
Simply.
Absolutely.